Hello there folks and welcome to this quick little vlog. As I have told you before, I'm currently attending the Copenhagen Pix film festival, which takes place over 2 weeks where all the cinemas in Copenhagen show all sorts of strange movies on top of their usual schedule. And I have been going to see quite a few. I'm going again a little later and tomorrow to see a few more. But I figured I'd tell you about some of the ones I've seen so far. So, strap in! The Mermaid is the classic story of a young, successful, and utterly ruthless businessman who does anything and everything to make money and is completely and utterly void of conscience, until he meets a sweet young girl with whom he falls in love. Where it differs from these kinds of movies, however, is the fact that the girl is actually a mermaid sent to assassinate the guy because his business is endangering her people's waters. And that's your whole concept. As you can probably guess by this brief summarization of the plot, this is not a kung fu comedy like Shaolin Soccer and Kung Fu Hustle that made Stephen Chow famous in the West, and he does not star in it himself. It's much more like a parody of classic environmental save the planet style stories that happens to include a lot of humor that is outright Looney Tune or Naked Gun-esque, just with a little bit of added violence. In fact, while the movie plays very much by the beat of this rich asshole falls in love and learns to appreciate the little things story, it actually, without giving too much away, veers off into a surprisingly violent and dark climax that I wasn't entirely prepared for. It still remains funny, it doesn't break anything, but I just got myself a little surprised there. The Mermaid is not a movie you watch because you want to learn something or be told a story you've never heard before, even if the mermaid concept is definitely somewhat new to me. Even its environmental message and its money can't buy love message, while seeming sincere enough, are definitely exaggerated just for the sake of this off-the-wall slapstick comedy that you're watching. The Mermaid is something you watch because you want to laugh, and odds are you will. It's ridiculous, it's stupid, and it's really, really funny. I recommend it, for sure. And to quote Monty Python, now for something completely different. A Ghost Story is a movie I've been looking forward to for months ever since I first heard about it, and it has really become a bit of an indie darling in the last few months. Like, everybody's making a huge buzz about this thing, and it's not without reason. In A Ghost Story, a completely regular man dies a very, very sudden death, and his ghost, here pictured as a classic bedsheet ghost, sticks around in his house and observes in silence as the world moves on without him. And he does so for a very, very long time. When it comes right down to it, A Ghost Story is a story about time, the enormity of time and how little time we as humans have, and asks the question whether or not we're actually capable of leaving something behind. It will waste your time in the beginning to show you just how long a minute is, so that you can truly process how long a day must be, how long a week must be, how long a month, a year, a decade, a century must be, to really put you in the position of this ghost that cannot interact and only watch as the world moves on without him. It is very well done, but it is done using a few tricks that might make it boring to watch for some. This is not a movie where a lot of things happen all the time. It is very much a movie that you observe the same way the main character observes the world. Now, as I mentioned, A Ghost Story has become a bit of an indie darling, and it's being touted as this big, important, existential movie that asks all the big questions that nobody ever asks, and does so in a way nobody has ever done before. I don't entirely agree with this, but in danger of sounding arrogant, it may be because I've watched similarly smart movies before. That's not to say that A Ghost Story isn't a very, very smart movie. It's beautifully done, it's very stylish, and I highly recommend it. I just believe that the media surrounding it should tone it down just a bit. These are not questions nobody have ever asked themselves before, and it's not presented in a mind-bendy way that is completely impossible to understand either. And in fact, I'm not entirely sure I particularly like the point it tries to make. A Ghost Story is going a very specific direction with its questions, and in order to do so without trying to give too many spoilers away, it actually halfway through tells you exactly how things are going to play out. Now, this isn't a problem, it makes perfect sense for the story it's telling. I'm just not a fan of the way it all plays out. But hey, it might be different for you. In either case, A Ghost Story is a very, very interesting movie, a very, very beautiful movie, and one that I believe that anyone who's interested in something a little different from the norm should definitely watch. Next up is French-Japanese animated film Motherfuckers, which is indeed spelled exactly how it sounds. And you can probably imagine how fun it is to go up to the ticket counter and go, yeah, I'd like 1 ticket for Motherfuckers at 7 p.m. please. Motherfuckers is set in a very grimy, very obviously American city called Dark Meat City, where pretty much everybody is in poverty, everything is covered in grime and graffiti and violence, and we follow a small fellow named Angelito, who has made it his mission to just keep his head low and survive day to day. That all changes very fast once he spots a pretty girl in the street, however, and he soon gets wrapped up in a crazy conspiracy that I don't dare to tell you anything about because you really have to experience this for yourself. Much like with The Mermaid, Motherfuckers is not a movie you should watch because you're expecting a new story. In fact, you're most likely to recognize a lot of things and a lot of tropes from anime, from cartoons, from video games, because Motherfuckers is very much a result of its creator just pouring everything he's ever found cool into a blender, holding the button in for a while and drinking it with a big smile on his face. I won't dare to tell you just what kind of elements are in this. What I can tell you is that it's an incredibly stylish, very colorful, very amusing and very exciting film that basically just feels like a celebration of cool shit. And I loved it, I definitely did. I've loved most of the stuff I've seen on this festival so far, and Motherfuckers is definitely up there when it comes to pure entertainment value. Plus, it's always nice to see a 2D animated movie really go all out with style. Motherfuckers is stylish and fun, and that's all you need from it. And once again, we'll make a complete tone shift and talk briefly about Wells' film A Dark Song, in which a woman and an occult expert lock themselves in a house for seemingly many months as they prepare a long, grueling and humiliating occult ritual intended to summon the woman's guardian angel so that she may ask one favor. Problem is, they kind of had to go through hell in order to meet it. I don't have too much to say about Dark Song, except that it is indeed a very dark movie that is definitely going to make you uncomfortable once or twice. It's hardly the scariest or most uncomfortable movie I've ever watched, but it's a very long build-up through one unexplained occult ritual after another as we head to a really scary climax. To go off on a bit on a tangent, I actually got a bit of a laugh out of it because the main character many times comments on how nothing is happening and how she's been waiting for so long for things to start happening, with the occult master like assuring her that things will pay off. It actually kind of feels like the movie is commenting on its own very slow build-up and commenting on how horror movies tend to play out. But I don't think that's on purpose, it just fits the story. It's definitely not a Cabin in the Woods style situation where they're just making fun of horror fans for getting impatient, but I couldn't help but laugh at this part. Thankfully, the most interesting part of A Dark Song is all the occultism, which is a good thing because it takes up a very large chunk of the movie. Outside of the occult expert here being a very atypical character who is incredibly fun to watch, the director showed up for a Q&A and told the viewers that the ritual you see in this movie and all the preparations made for it are actually very real. Characters written down have been changed, just to be safe. But this is actually a ritual that people have attempted to perform before. So there's always this feeling of authenticity even before you know that. Like, you completely buy that there is a subculture that gets into this stuff and could actually potentially do shit like this. However, I will not claim I understand all of it. There are some scenes that veer off in a direction where I'm not really sure what the movie is trying to tell me, and the ending in particular kind of threw me off a little bit. Not that I wasn't interested, I definitely was, it was still very fun to watch, but I'm just not sure what exactly that ending is supposed to signify. All the same, A Dark Song is definitely something you should watch if you're looking for atypical horror, or at least something that is very deeply rooted in occultism without the usual Hollywood Satanism surrounding it. So definitely check A Dark Song out. So that was the first half of the movies I've been watching at the Copenhagen Pix Film Festival. Do any of these sound particularly interesting to you? Or have you been at a movie festival where you've watched something you would definitely recommend others to watch? If so, let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more reviews of films, comic books, video games, and all sorts of other nerdy stuff. And do remember, I also have plenty of social media profiles for you to follow, and there are links in the description to all of them. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.